step 9. Well, hello, this is a continuation of the September 26th reading called, what is it called? Our Children. And I got way off the subject because I haven't had children. Not off the subject of alcoholism, though. Off the subject of children and alcoholics. And how damaged that is by alcoholism. That relationship, the dynamics get way crazy. Well, let's just say extraordinarily dynamic. A lot more tension, action, and stuff. Generally, what does the big book say about alcoholics, I think? This is why there's Al-Anon, I think. It's because the alcoholic isn't just, I forget which poet said it, a man unto himself, an island unto himself, something like that. We're subtly in some ways and drastically upsetting everybody and person around us, and we're like a tornado raging through everybody's life around us. And I believe that's one reason why Al-Anon is there. These people typically don't have any issues other than they were married or somehow related closely to an alcoholic, and they need some support and help, and they go to Al-Anon and they get that. Because oh man, I'm just thinking about myself as an alcoholic and maybe some of the relationships. If you were in that category of having some kind of relationship with an alcoholic, maybe of any kind, business, sexual, intimate, financial, just some kind of close thing where you keep seeing this person and they're drunk and they're drunker and then they're drunk and then they're really drunk now, and it just goes on, and then they're just in a rage, just so angry, just breaking stuff, and other times they're aloof and they just don't, it's just like living with I don't know how many other people. I had anyways. So see, this is kind of what happened on the last video, which I guess I will be calling part 1 if I can sort all this out now. Because I'm not an editor, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just a recovering alcoholic with some thoughts. So I'm not into technology so much and all this stuff like that. And I've fancied using this word this instead of that. And I use it wrongly a lot. I don't forget anyways, doesn't matter. Trying to paint a picture and get the point across. Occasionally you might find something useful if you keep watching. So I was talking about this I was talking about this theory I have, about, because I was talking about the alcoholic going into treatment, and at least from my experience, one of the first few things after you're admitted as a patient in the chemical abuse unit, chemical rehab unit, or whatever, alcoholic rehab unit, I don't know what they might call it. And I forget what mine was technically called. It doesn't matter really. When they're trying to figure out how best to treat this person, this patient, this sick and possibly dying person. I mean, like dying soon person. We're all going to die. I hate to break that news to you. That's another part of this insanity. To hasten that by chronic abuse of alcohol doesn't seem like a sane way to try and live. Anyways, so if you could take a blood test that said without a doubt you're an alcoholic or you are not an alcoholic, I don't believe that type of thing exists. There is, however, some links. I don't know if they're tenuous, I don't know if they're rigorous, I don't know how tight they are, if they're anecdotal or if they're empirical, I guess. In your genealogy, if your ancestors were one way or another, you might be more likely to turn out that way also. And then that carries a whole bag of variables also, like your environment and your emotions, and even your senses, let's say. And so a lot of that is in your brain, how you process the intake of information, and then the decision, bing, this card pops out, and you decide to go do something. It's not all genes. Just because your genes might say one thing does not mean 100% of the time that is exactly what's going to happen to you. However, the power of suggestion is very strong. So we get an idea like whatever it might be, and we start thinking about it, and then what's that thing called? Well, I'll just call it the power of self-suggestion. We essentially talk ourselves into exhibiting these behaviors and such, and then we see that, and all of a sudden it's true. And the sad fact is that psychologically we can just dream up something and it kind of starts to happen to us, and then we see that, and then we're convinced, and then you can start taking blood tests and stuff and start to see that your genes are reacting to that decision and those emotional cues and such, your environment, and manifesting that way. They start flipping on different channels of energy, protein switching, and whatnot that happens in there. And all of a sudden, bam, the new cell is mutated by this thought. Maybe not thought alone, but it had a big, anyhow, okay. And so I got off talking about that, about could somebody that takes this blood test for alcoholism and passes with a negative. It's like, oh, I'm not an alcoholic. And it's like, are you sure? Because your grandfather was, or your father. I forget if it skips a generation or something like that. And I believe whatever you class insanity as, it's the same type of thing. So if all of a sudden you find yourself, or you're whatever, some doctor's looking at you and they go, was your father, an alcoholic? Was your grandfather? Or they ask a couple questions like that. Maybe they're probing a way to see what your family genealogy is and how likely it is, because, man, humans are complex. A lot of things can go wrong. And for a doctor, I mean, he's got a list of, like, I don't know, it's huge. It's like, it could be any one of these. How am I ever going to get to the bottom of this? And, like, I'm a mechanic, and I'm retired now. I was an aircraft mechanic. And there's any number of different things that can cause a lot of things. It's like, I guess we just need to start ruling things off, because anyhow, troubleshooting. The doctor is looking at, it's like, oh my gosh, this guy, or whatever, and he's flipping through in his head. He's just going through all this. It could be this, it could, and then he's got a secondary question, right, and all this kind of thing. And anyways, by the time, they get, well, I don't want to plant any ideas in your head. I'm just saying that a doctor is asking you about your grandparents and parents to try and help him get this enormous list maybe down to half the size. Because it's like, okay, patently these things are just, it's not those. It's probably just these over here, this list. It used to be, but now it's just so over here. And then, they get down to they got 2 or 3 likely candidates of what's causing your visit today, or whatever, or why the blood turned out that way, or whatever, and then they can start doing tests, right, to see if it is, and then they can formulate a treatment modality, and then apply the treatment and see if it works. That's the best they can do. I'm going to run out of time talking about this now. So I had this thought. Can an alcoholic, or not an alcoholic, you got alcoholics and you got problem drinkers, say. And I believe a problem drinker is not an alcoholic. It's kind of a thing to keep in mind here. Can that problem drinker then turn into an alcoholic by whatever way, and then just be this, I don't know, full-blown alcoholic, whatever that might be? Because there's all these steps, like in this entrancing assessment, to see how much of an alcoholic you might be, I guess. I was going to word that differently. And I was given this example in the other video that, well, there's no way, some patient might say, there's no way I can be an alcoholic because I only drink on my birthday, period. They clam up. And then the doctor, of course, has to start asking more questions. And all of a sudden they find out, wait a minute, you don't only drink on your birthday, you also drink on your wife's birthday, which is a different date, at a different time in the year. You drink on that day also. So now you drink twice a year. And then they start asking, it's like, do you look forward to that time? How do you feel about your drinking on those two dates? And then, like, if you're looking forward to it, 364 days out of the year, you're just white knuckling, waiting for your birthday so you can crack open a beer, right? That tends to lead the doctor into thinking this person might maybe be an alcoholic because of that anticipatory thing of the drug, I think, is kind of the way it goes. Okay, so I got into that wondering if a person that isn't genetically predisposed to alcoholism can turn into an alcoholic. Can it, in one sense, just come out of nowhere, bam, all of a sudden you turn into an alcoholic, and it doesn't manifest or present itself until maybe you start drinking alcohol and you throw up and you pledge never to drink it again, and then some circumstance, your wife's birthday comes along and you decide to have a sip of champagne with her, or something you think isn't going to get you loaded, and you're only going to have a sip, just one sip, man, and you get a taste of that stuff and something happens and you just think, oh, I'm going to drink the rest of this glass and then that'll be it. And then pretty soon you're in the bottom of the bottle, the case is empty, the house is torn apart, you're already divorced, and you're driving on the way hammered drunk to the liquor store to get more, that kind of thing. That's where I was. And somehow I got some image in my head of that's an alcoholic. But that's a really good example of an alcoholic, but there's plenty of other things that humans end up exhibiting, doing, presenting that isn't non-alcoholic behavior. Let's put it that way. So that's, I might have said in this part one, I'm just trying to focus on the alcohol part of, or the human beings. Here, I don't have any degrees in anything except if you counted. I went to Bible college for 2 years. It's not accredited. I got an associate's degree from that institution. I don't think anybody other than God and fellow classmates would honor that degree. My behavior may not be exactly, I don't, whatever. I curse. I don't think I've been watching my mouth a lot trying to record these videos. So you might be the first person to catch me cursing on YouTube, because that's probably going to be a problem one day, and they'll just shut you down. YouTube, Google will. Anyways, where am I? I'm at home making a video. That's an easy one. What was I trying to shoot this video about? Oh, I'm just a guy with no degrees other than that a guy with no degrees. Okay, I just do a lot of reading, and I'm really interested in humans. I wanted to be a psychologist. I still kind of want to be like some type of scientist, but I'm not going to school for it. So I study everything a scientist would, like the scientific method and these kind of things. And it's really helpful for me in a lot of stuff, dealing with human things. Because I do have maladies, illnesses, sicknesses of my own. That's another thing. It's like, well, how come the doctor hasn't tried this or whatever, and I try and understand myself better, I guess. I'm Neil Peart, the drummer from Rush, now sadly deceased, but we're all dying. Hate to break that news to you. People were asking him about something, because this dude, Neil Peart, was dynamic. And people called him a polymath, which you just study all kinds of stuff and you become like an expert in all of them. That's my definition. That's like, you're pretty good at something, then you might turn pro, and then you turn, I don't know, maybe expert, then you're a master, say, and then on top of that you become, I don't know what's above master, polymath or something. It's this kind of level of expertise. You left an expert in the dirt back there. And anyways, there's all, I want to talk about that now. This fallacy of an expert telling you the way it is. Because what happens to experts a lot is that they've heard it all before. They think they have the right answer. Some new evidence comes along, and they reject it out of hand. That's it. This argument is over with. We determined this is the way it is, and that new thing you're saying is crazy talk. I'm not going to listen. So you're wrong and I'm right. I'm still right. You can catch this in mainstream media. They'll call in the expert. And they're closed-minded on a lot of stuff, man, that every day, every second I would even wager, there's new things that could upset physics. That happens occasionally. They come up with something, they solve an age-old thing, and it's like, you were wrong. Einstein was wrong. And things like that. And so anyways, I'm trying to become better at things myself. Okay, now back to Neil Peart and experts. Where was it going with this? Is that guy... Oh, people would ask Neil Peart, it's like, you're so good at this or something or whatever, it's hard to believe. How did you do it? And here, let me rephrase that a little bit. Neil, how come you're such a fine drummer? Your technical prowess is unsurpassed, say. And are you obsessed with drumming? Might be the question an interviewer asked. And what his reply was, in one case that I remember, and if it's correct, what Neil said in response, are you obsessed? Is he said, I'm enthusiastically inquisitive. And I believe I've got a flair for that myself. And that's, even though I don't have any degrees, and I say a bunch of stuff that maybe a lot of, whatever. It's not backed up by science, okay? This is all speculation on my part and personal examples or personal experience. So I'm an eyewitness to some of these things in my own experience. So I think I have some credibility there. There we go. All right. So thank you for coming by here. And shall endeavor to get back with you later. Goodbye.